Hello, and welcome back to another version of Mr. Walker's Chemistry. Today we'll be talking about protons, which are part of the modern atomic theory. We're just going to do basics, nothing too in-depth about protons here. We do know quite a bit about protons as chemists, and if you're interested in that, I encourage you to read up on more about protons and what's contained within protons. But for high school chemistry, the most basic information will do. All right. So previously, you learned that atoms, which make up everything, are in and of themselves made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons. In this video, we're just going to talk about protons. And what do we really know about them? So just as a refresher, in case you may have forgotten, here's our carbon atom. All right. We've got protons and neutrons in here, where again, protons are blue, neutrons are red, and these electrons going around in circles around the outside of the atom, or the outside of the nucleus, the center of the atom here. All right. So if we go on to our next slide here, I just want to tell you what you should know before the end of the video. All right. So this is kind of a little mini quiz for yourself. If you get to the end of the video and you can't fully explain what a proton is or how we use protons in chemistry, then you should probably go back and rewatch this video at some point. All right. So you should, again, be able to explain what a proton is and how we use those in chemistry. You will be using this information quite a bit throughout the course, not just the next couple of weeks until your exam or something, but throughout the entire course. It's important to know what protons are and how we use them. Okay, so what is a proton? Well, a proton is one of three subatomic particles. Okay, protons are located in the nucleus. This is the middle of the atom, the central part of the atom. So this ball here, let me get my pen. This ball here in the middle with the blue and red dots is called the nucleus. Okay, that is our nucleus. Apologize for the writing. But there's our nucleus. And so that really helps us figure out what's going on. So we've got protons in the nucleus. All right. Other important information. Protons have a positive charge, a plus charge. So without knowing that, a lot of things in chemistry are going to be pretty tough. So do know protons have a positive charge, which isn't too hard to remember because both words start with P. Protons, positive. All right. Some other miscellaneous information that you should be aware of is that protons are very, very tiny. We know that atoms are extremely tiny in and of themselves. Remember, everything's made of atoms, and you get all the way down to the DNA of a cell, and then you can see the atoms that make up the DNA. So protons are even smaller than that. They're very, very, very tiny. In fact, they only weigh 1.6 or about 1.7 times 10 to the negative 24th grams. Okay, this is very, very small. Now, you may not have an idea of how much 1 gram weighs. So 1 gram weighs, I would say, about as much as a sugar cube. All right. If you were to go to your cabinet and get one of the little sugar cubes, the ones that are like 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, not one of the really big ones that you can get, and weigh it would probably weigh about a gram. This is an order of 24 times smaller than that. Okay, this times 10 to the negative 24 means that if I write out this number here, I'm going to type it out. So that is 0. And then we're going to put 23 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's 23. I think that's 23 zeros, and then 1673. Okay, this is that number. That's a very tiny number. Okay, these things are small. So because they are so small, scientists created this new measurement that we call the atomic mass unit. And in fact, atoms are so small they came up with lots of new measurements in order to be able to communicate effectively these numbers. Because it's really annoying to go to somebody and say, I have something that weighs 1.673 times 10 to the negative 24th grams every time you want to talk about a proton. It's much easier to just say it weighs 1 atomic mass unit. Right? So you should know this. 1 atomic mass unit is how much a proton weighs. That's very, very, very important when it comes to weighing atoms. Well, it's important because if I know that I have 6 protons, okay, we use the P plus sign for protons, P because proton, and plus because of the positive sign, then I know that I have at least a mass of 6 AMUs. All right, much easier to do math that way, much easier to communicate. So what does a proton tell us? Well, that's important, okay? More so even than what it is what does it tell us? All right. Protons in chemistry are used to identify atoms. Identify atoms. You can't see an atom. It's, you just can't. So you have to go based on how many protons it has. If it has 5 protons, it is boron. If it has 6, it is carbon. If it has 7, it is nitrogen. If it has 8, it is oxygen, etc. So in just a minute, we're going to look at the periodic table, and we're going to see if we can figure this stuff out. This number, how many protons it has. So I just said carbon has 6 protons. Okay. So if carbon has 6 protons, that is the atomic number of carbon. All right, we're going to get lots of practice with this, of how many of each of these things do we have, and what do they mean, and how do we identify them. Okay, so we can use this to quickly find elements on the periodic table, because the periodic table is partly organized by the atomic number, by how many protons each atom has, or each element will have. And protons contribute to the mass. We know that they weigh 1 AMU, so they contribute partly to the mass of the atom. So here's the periodic table. Let's use this and the information we just learned to practice what protons are useful for. So using this periodic table, identify the element with 15 protons. So if we look here, this periodic table comes with a key. And when we go back one slide, let me just erase everything so it's easy to see, we noticed here that the number of protons is the atomic number. Number of protons is the atomic number. That's important. And we go over to our key here, and what do we see? Well, in our key, which is right here, we can see that we have an atomic number in the top left. Not all periodic tables will be like this. That's why they come with keys. So the ones that you get in class or you see in class may be slightly different, but we can see that the atomic number on this periodic table has it in the top right. So I have 15 protons. That's important, 15 protons. What element do I have? Well, that's simple. Find the one with an atomic number of 15. And there it is. So you can see they're arranged 1, 2, 3, all the way up, okay? And we get to 15, and this has the symbol of P, okay? And the name, if we look at our key, is at the bottom, so we have phosphorus. All right, so we can type into our answer here, this is phosphorus. And let's reduce that text so it doesn't take up the whole thing. All right, so we have phosphorus there. Simple enough. Okay, so try and do these next two. Which element has 12 protons? Which element has 75 protons? And see if you can do those on your own. So if you need to pause the video, do so. I'm going to move on to this next practice piece. It says, what is the mass of the protons in carbon? So let's go back to our notes, go back to our information, and this is something that you could do quite a bit with these videos. So rewind, go back, all right? So, but since this is still early on, we'll do some practice with it. So we found that down here, okay, this piece right here says protons contribute to the mass because they weigh 1 AMU. 1 AMU. So here, okay, let's start putting pieces of information together now. First, we need to find carbon. All right, so it's asking us about carbon. Well, let's find it. Carbon's not too hard to find on here. Starts with a C, so it makes sense that they use the C. So here's our carbon. All right. Now atomic number tells us number of protons. So carbon has 6 protons. See the 6 right there. So then the mass of the protons in carbon must also be 6. Makes the math easy when you convert the unit to 1 AMU instead of trying to use the grams. So it is 6 AMU. All right, simple enough. So you do the one for iodine. Find iodine on the periodic table, and then tell me what the mass of the protons are. So you can do that with your own practice. So a review. What is a proton? You should be able to answer that question. If you cannot answer the question, go back and look it up. Okay? Where are protons located? That's important to know. You need to know where protons are located. What is the charge? What is the electrical charge? Is it positive or negative or neither, being neutral? How much does it weigh? And what is the number of protons used for? So if you are unable to answer any of these 5 questions, which are all things you should have learned from this video, please go back, rewind, and find that information. Write it down in your notes. It is important to have. Okay? I hope you learned something with this video, and I'll see you next time.